ready. And yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I suppose we go live. So I hope the sound and video are both okay. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to see you again. My name is Anastasia Fedorova, and I'm the manager of international sales at Educate Online. So first of all, thank you for joining us today. We have a special interview today with an amazing speaker, Soraya Beheshti, Managing Director, Crimson Education MENA. And I'm sure you have already known about Crimson. It's a global education company that offers first-rate tutoring and university consulting as part of its full range of services in order to aid students in realizing their full academic potential. And Soraya today will share insightful information about the application process and prestigious universities around the world. Hi, Soraya. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. Always love when we do collaborations with Educate Online. Excited to share some tips about universities and help people get on their way to the best decision they'll ever make.
It's a pleasure to meet you today. Can you briefly tell us about yourself, about your position in the company?
Sure. So I'm currently a regional manager looking after Europe, Middle East, Africa, UK, India, and Turkey. And I've been with Crimson for 8 years. So I actually started as one of Crimson's first ever students. I had dreamed of going to an Ivy League university, but none of my parents even went to university. So they wanted to support me, but they weren't sure how. And Crimson was just new at the time. And I ended up using Crimson and getting a scholarship to Columbia University, which was one of my dream schools. And the scholarship, of course, was very important for me. And I had such an amazing experience that I decided I wanted to work for Crimson. So I started part-time when I was 19 and full-time when I was 21 and established our business in the Middle East 5 or 6 years, 5 years ago. And then since then, I became a regional manager, so looking after all those regions I mentioned. And it's been 8 years. And it's been pretty amazing to see Crimson grow in this region and to see how many students we've been able to help. It's pretty rewarding.
It sounds incredibly cool, and I look forward to a very interesting and useful broadcast for students today. And thank you for sharing information about your background, Sarah. It's amazing. And so let's move to agenda for today's meeting. As you can see, we are going to discuss with Sarah what do admissions officers look for. We will analyze in detail what a student needs for successful admission to universities. We will learn about the key components of a great application, and Saraya shares with us strategies and tips for maximizing chances for admission while your child is still in high school. And also, Saraya will highlight the exceptional cases of Crimson Global Academy students and the opportunities that Crimson Global Academy provides the students seeking admission to the world's top universities. So from my point of view, it sounds extremely intriguing. And so before we start, I would like to remind our viewers that if you have any kind of questions, make sure you drop a message below, and we will be happy to answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. So yeah, I suppose we are ready to start, so let's do it. And yeah, I suppose that we should start with Crimson Global Academy. Soraya, could you tell us more about this wonderful company and this wonderful school? And please tell us more about the educational process.
Sure. So Crimson Education has a number of different educational services, and Crimson Global Academy is one of our companies that we have. And we started out with the mission to be able to provide high quality schooling online to students all over the world. Now, we had this in the pipeline before COVID, but COVID, of course, accelerated it. And what we found was that students were having to learn online, but they were having to learn online in schools that weren't designed to be delivered online, had not really trained teachers on how to learn online, and just really were not Like they had to scramble very quickly to be able to offer this, like through no choice of their own. So what we wanted to be able to offer was an alternative that was better and that was online first, meaning it was designed that way. Like the teachers were trained that way. We didn't want to just have students joining a Zoom class and having teachers teach in the way they were used to teaching in person, but doing it on Zoom, because it doesn't work. There are different strategies for making an engaging classroom online than there are in person. So for us, it also became very important to build a technology offering that helped to mimic some of the things you get when you're in person. For example, in a normal school, you go into your geography classroom, there's maps all over the wall, like you can mentally enter that space, and it's like it's a different space, literally, and it can help you get into the mindset for that class. But in a Zoom classroom, you're in the same Zoom room for every call, so you don't get that. So it was important for us to be able to rethink the technology of online learning and be able to try and mimic that, and not only do as well as a good online school, but better. Sorry,
Yeah.
as a good in-person school, but better, yeah. So, and then Crimson Education, which is the parent company of CGA, Crimson Global Academy, we have end-to-end educational services. So we provide university admissions consulting, tutoring, tours, competitions, internships, everything that a student may need to get to their dream university, whether they're in undergrad or in high school, or looking even at master's and PhD programs. And we do
Yeah,
have the best results in the world. We send more students to the Ivy League in Oxford and Cambridge than any other company in the world.
it sounds extremely attractive. And what about the university admission? Can you tell us exactly what is needed to enter into the American universities and what are British universities looking for?
Absolutely. So just to contextualize your question, I want to show Crimson's results because I want people to have confidence that what I'm about to tell you comes from a place of knowing. So you can see here the number of offers we've had to the Ivy League, 700 plus, to top 50 US colleges, and over 200 to Oxford and Cambridge. Around 5% of international students at some Ivy League universities are Crimson students. So we have sent a lot of students there. Now, zooming out, there are over 1 million first-year applicants applying to US universities in the 2021-22 cycle. So it's there's a lot of people to compete with. And if we're looking at the top universities, you'll notice that the admissions rates are extremely low, like sub 5% for the most part. And next to it, you can see the admissions rate for students who are using our support. So we think we've cracked the code, and I'm going to share with you some of our special inside tips today. So what you're seeing here is a US News ranking. There's a few different rankings that you should look at. There's US News, there's QS, and there's top universities. And then there's also Shanghai ranking as well. They will all look a little different. However, and the reason they look different is because they have different weighting for different criteria. So some focus more on research production, some focus on student to faculty ratio. But generally, you see a lot of the same universities appear on the same rankings. So these Harvard, Stanford, Yale, they're all third equal this year. I mean, in any given year, you're going to have like these 5 universities in the top 10. Okay. So these are consistently delivering. Now, there's subject-specific rankings as well, which look a little different. Like on if you wanted to study or work in oil and gas, then Rice University would be your number 1 choice. If you wanted to study computer science, then Carnegie Mellon and Harvey Mudd will be on there, even though they don't appear in the general rankings. So what do admissions officers look for? These are obviously the best universities in the world. So on average, at a university like Stanford or an Ivy League, you'll have about 40,000 applicants and about 1,800 places for international students, even less if it's a smaller school. So it is very, very limited. And that means that families and students should focus on really putting all their efforts into making sure that they can submit the best application possible. You want to go immediately into the yes pile. So the US has a 4-year degree. It's called a liberal arts system. It's a bit misleading because you'd be part of a liberal arts curriculum even if you're doing like computer science. And in the liberal arts system, you don't actually have to choose your subject until your second or third year. You don't have to finalize it. You can indicate the subject that you plan on studying when you're at university, when you're applying, but you're not bound to it. So because they don't know what you're going to study and which major you're going to end up with, they can't really make the decision to admit you based on having a strong profile in that major, which is the total opposite to the UK. The exception is engineering. If you're applying to an engineering college, then you absolutely should have a strong engineering focused profile. But for the most part, they don't know if you're going to be a lawyer. They don't know if you're going to study anthropology, or maybe you switch to economics or film. So that means that they're forced to make the decision more holistically based on your personal qualities and what they know about you as a person, like your creativity, intellectual curiosity, your drive, your dedication, your resilience, and so on. So I would say the most important ones are like intellectual curiosity. That's probably one of the things that personal qualities that they look at most. They look at whether or not you're sort of appearing like a team player. They want you obviously to get to university and be someone who's an asset to everyone around you, not someone who's toxic to everyone around you. And then creativity and just a sense of entrepreneurial ability. So an ideal student is a student who has ideas and makes them happen and builds them. Even if they don't ultimately work out, they want to see that you're trying, you're really active. So about 40% of the decision is based on your academics, and that includes your school grades, as well as your SAT or ACT. Even if your school is test optional, we really recommend that you do it, because students who submit a test score are admitted at much higher rates than students who don't. The SAT became optional because people wanted to be able to offer something to they wanted to be able to avoid penalizing students who literally could not do a test because of COVID. But that's not going to be the case for most of you. So you want to make sure that you're at least planning to submit a score. If you really don't get the score that you want, then you can decide not to submit it. But plan as if you are. So properly study for it, because it's going to help your chances a lot. You will also be able to submit your APs. So APs would be advanced placement courses. These are college level courses. Crimson Global Academy does offer them. So it's an intro college level course. So for example, you can do statistics, you can do calculus, you can do history, you can do macroeconomics, microeconomics, and universities love them because it's one of the best ways to give them confidence that you are actually able to keep up with the level of academic rigor at that university. An admissions officer is reviewing your application, and they're trying to keep in mind that they want to admit a class of students who is not going to be they're not going to drop out, or they're not going to transfer or find it overwhelming. So any indication that you can actually keep up with that level of work, that's good. So 40% academics. That doesn't mean you only put 40% of your effort into academics, because if the academic foundation is not there, they will not pay attention to the other stuff. So this is a little confusing, but it's just to say that academics will get your foot in the door, but they won't take you further than that. That's where your extracurriculars, application, essays, interview all come in. So then 30% of the decision is based on extracurricular, leadership, and awards. It's not a case of more is more. I personally, when I was applying, I was involved in the drama club. I was involved in the orchestra, the chapel choir. I did 3 musical instruments. I played 2 varsity sports. I was on the philosophy club, journalism club. I thought this made me a really strong applicant. But when I came to Crimson, it was made clear to me that actually that's not that strong, because it just looks like I lacked focus and I had no sense of direction. Instead, you want to be what we call well lopsided, where you have 2 or 3 key areas that you're really passionate about and you explore them deeply. and you can channel them into lots of activities. So maybe your interest is economics and violin. Can you find a way to do like an economic research project on something to do with violins or music, as well as submit your violin stuff and some other economics related stuff, maybe internships and economics AP. So can you do lots of activities from these two core interests? And then impact is also really important. So you can, if you have an extracurricular achievement, it could be on the school level, the local level, the country level, international. The higher up you can go on that scale, the more impressive the activity is. And the remaining 30% is application essays and interview. So effectively, who you are as a person. You have one personal statement which goes to every university you apply to, and then at least one supplemental essay per university. But honestly, it's usually more like 3 to 8 supplemental university essay questions of varying lengths. So some of them are really short. And then you may get invited to an interview with an alumni. You may not. It depends on the alumni availability. So actually, those two other components make up a greater portion of your admissions than the academics. But like I said, they're not going to pay attention to these two if the academics aren't strong. So, there's kind of no point applying to an Ivy League university, even if you have fantastic extracurriculars, if you're averaging Bs. It's not going to happen. However, between two students who are A's or A-star students, if one of them has a really impressive extracurricular profile and the other one just has an average one, they're obviously going to give it to the one with a really impressive profile. You're asked to list your 10 activities that you've been involved in, and you have to rank them in order of importance. You have to select the type of activity, like charity, academic, and athletic, and so on, your position, the organization name, and then any more details about the activity. So for example, if you're in student government, they want to know that you weren't just sitting in the meetings doing nothing. They want to see students who created their own campaigns for the school. Maybe you campaign for fair wages. Maybe you campaign for better recycling facilities or more green policies. That's what you write there. And it should be order of importance. They want to see things that you've done consistently over time, above things that you did one day. So if you participated in like a one-day volunteering event, ideally that's not going to be on your application at all, because you're going to put rather things that you did in a more committed way. But if it has to be on your application, put it at the bottom. They also ask you to list how many weeks you spent per year on this activity and how many hours per week. So that's the activity section. And then you have the academic awards. So you're allowed to specify 5 awards that you've achieved academically. And then there's those essays. Now, the UK is a different story. The UK, about 75% of the decision is based on your academics at school. You can also submit grades for SAT, ACT, or AP exams, but you don't have to, but they will look at it if you submit it. And then in the UK, you have to do admissions tests for most courses. So there's the LNAT, which is an admissions test for law school. There's the BMAT and UCAT, which are admissions tests for medicine. There's the Oxford Thinking Skills Assessment. If you want to do any humanities course at Oxford, you have to do that. There's a mathematics admissions test. There's a physics admissions test. There's an architecture admissions test. So it's very subject specific. Now in the UK, you're going to apply directly to a subject. So you would apply, let's say, to the law school. And it's the law school that's going to decide whether or not you're admitted. It's not a general admissions committee like it is in the US. So because your application is being read by the law school faculty, they are not thinking about this holistic personal qualities in the way that the US is. They're really thinking, is this student going to be a good law student? Like, are they going to be good in my department? And are they going to be a good lawyer? So they don't care about the sports that you did. They don't care about any extracurriculars that aren't either directly related to law or related to skills that law needs. So to give you a little more context on that, take medicine, for example. Of course, you need a strong sense of science, but equally important to being a doctor is having good communication skills, because you're often sharing difficult news with families. So they need to know that you're empathetic. And so activities that you could put on a medicine application would be things like medicine, would be science competitions and science activities, but also anything that shows your social and communication skills. Once you're in a department in the UK, you can't just transfer easily. So it has to be very subject specific. Medicine is another example where it's such a long degree, it's 5-6 years, that they want to know that you are really committed to that subject before you go in, because they know that the closest thing you have is biology and chemistry. But biology and chemistry doesn't really tell you anything about being a doctor. So they want to see that you've done doctor shadowing, you've read books about being a doctor, you understand how medicine interacts with other things in the world like insurance and public health and social justice and so on. So for the UK, it's much more academically focused. Even the extracurriculars should be academic and related to your subject. And the UK universities want to see things like you've done a lot of reading about your subject, you've read professors and key people in your subject. They want to see that you understand what medicine, for example, is, what it takes, and that's going to give them confidence that you're able to stick out those 5 years. The other thing is that in the UK, your application is being read by someone who's literally probably going to teach you. So they want to see that you're someone who is going to be the kind of student that they would want in the classroom. That's different to the US, where the admissions officers will probably never meet you. So 25% is based on those remaining components. But this is a little misleading, and I want to clarify that. Because although it says 25%, if you don't perform well in the interview, say for a medicine course, vet course, dentistry, or any Oxford and Cambridge course, that will, no matter how good the rest of your application was, that will prevent you from advancing in the application process. It's a little different for some universities, but for the most part, the personal statement and the admissions test will get you invited to an interview. Then once you're in the interview, the decision about whether or not you're admitted is entirely based on how you perform in the interview. They forget everything else. So it's just important to be aware of that. And I really want students to avoid waiting till too long to either start preparing for the interview or to prepare for those admissions tests, because it's the same thing there. You can have amazing grades, amazing extracurricular. If you don't meet the required threshold for the admissions test, then they won't admit you. So I want students to really prepare for both of those ahead of time. So that's my tips for UK and US. If you're in the UK, read about your subject, learn about your subject, do shadowing, speak to other people, and so on.
You explained all components of successful application in such detail, so I think it will be easier for many students to start planning their admission to universities. And it seems to me that you should consciously consider the admission and begin prepare for it in advance. And and we move to our long-awaited topic: how students can prepare for admission with Crimson Global Academy.
Great. So yeah, there are a few different things. As you've seen in both the US and the UK, the number one most important factor for admission is academics. So it's very important that you go to a school that is well set up to send students abroad. If you're currently in a school that's not Crimson Global Academy, I want to encourage you to think about a couple of things. I moved around schools a lot when I was younger, so I've had experience in every kind of school. One, I want you to go look at your school's website and try to find the university leavers destinations. If a school is actually regularly sending students to top universities, you will bet that they would advertise that on their website. Every good university, every good school does. So have a look and see what kind of numbers of students are actually going to the university that you want to go to. If you can't find it on the website, then it's likely that they're not sending that many. But just in case, have a conversation with the school, with the guidance counselor or the head of the the head of sixth form, the head of the high school, and try to figure out, is this school actually sending students to where I want to go? That's very important. There are a few things that impact your admission that are out of your control and are specifically related to your school. For example, when a student applies to a university in the US on the Common App, the school has to submit what's called a school profile. And the school profile tells the university everything about your school. How many subjects are offered? What is the average grade for students in each subject? What is the GPA? How are they doing rankings? Things like that. Because whenever you apply, you're always going to be judged in the context of your school first. So the average number of AP exams taken by a student who's entering the Ivy League from the American curriculum is 7 to 12. Now, if your school only offers 5, it does put you in a little bit of a disadvantage. If your school offers 7, but you're only taking 5, then that puts you at a big disadvantage because it shows that you're not doing the most challenging things that you can. And that's what the very top universities want. They want to see that of the things available to you, you're always challenging yourself and taking the most that you can. Now, if your school only offers 5, but you do 7 because you've done 2 outside or you've done 2 on your own, then it's the best way to signal that you are the kind of candidate who's not afraid of a challenge and who's willing to kind of do all the extra work. That's the student they want. So if you are happy with your school, but you want to push more, then I would encourage you to consider joining Crimson Global Academy as a part-time student, meaning you're just taking a couple of subjects. These could be advanced placement courses, or it could be A-levels, GCSEs. There's a number of different options. What I like about the advanced placement courses is that you actually get credits for them that you can use in a US university. I'll give you an example of why this is useful. If you're taking economics at university, you usually have to do some intro economics courses, and the prerequisite for those would be to do intro calculus courses, Calculus 101 usually. Now, at university, Calculus 101 would probably be a 3-credit course, and you're usually paying at, say, an Ivy League around $1,400, $1,500 per credit. So that course is going to cost you $4,500 at university. However, if you've done it as an AP, you actually don't have to do that. So it either means you can graduate early because you will already be able to cross off some of your requirements to graduate from university in high school, or it means that instead of spending those credits on Calculus 101, you can spend them on a more exciting university course. So that's great. And like I said, it does help with your admissions as well. If you feel like your school isn't actually set up to help you succeed in your goals, though, I would strongly encourage you to consider a full-time admission to Crimson Global Academy, meaning Crimson Global Academy is your primary school. The way our school is designed, we're using data and that no other school uses. We've been in the admission space for more than a decade. So we were having tens of thousands of conversations, literally, with high school students about what struggles they were facing at school with regards to admissions goals and academic performance. And so we had all these data points when we were designing the school, and we literally just built a school to solve these problems. So Crimson Global Academy, the classes are really small, and we're able to do things a traditional school cannot do. So in a traditional school, you can't group students into classes according to how they learn, what their learning style is. Some students are oral learners, some are visual learners, some are kinetic, they make stuff with their hands. An online school can allow you to do a lot of that. The reason why you can't do it in a person is because you just wouldn't have enough students to fill each class. But when we have this global school, like Crimson Global Academy, we have a pool of students from all over the world, 30 plus countries. So we can actually make our classes more intentional like that. And what we're seeing is that students are able to achieve the same A-level or AP results in much fewer hours. So it's not the case that if you're in Crimson Global Academy, you're going to be on Zoom for 8 hours a day. No, students are able to achieve the same result in a shorter period of time because the experience is more personalized. So they may only be in Zoom classes for 4 hours a day. It depends on the number of subjects, and that frees up so much time for them to work on these extracurriculars and supercurriculars. Not only are they in class for less hours a day, but they also are not commuting.
Yeah. That's great. And I agree with you that Crimson Global Academy is a great chance for students to be enrolled at the best universities around the world. So, yeah, if we talk about students, can you highlight the students' cases of Crimson Global Academy?
Sure. Well, so I have in front of me Crimson, just successful student case studies from Crimson Education generally. And just so you can see what a really strong profile looks like. So this is a student from Oman, and he was in a British school. So he was doing A-levels. He was working with a strategist, Martin. So Martin was helping with him with his university admissions as part of our Crimson Education University Admissions Consulting. Martin is an alumni of Harvard and Oxford, who's helped students with many, many different university applications. He also had an extracurricular mentor who was a computer scientist and mathematician. Aryan was first achieved top in the world for GCSE maths, meaning 100% in GCSE maths. He got A stars in all of his subjects in A-level and achieved a great SAT score. It's out of 1,600, so 1,550 is very high. But what's really amazing about Aryan was the extracurriculars that he had. So he was able to create a coding society summer camp. This student wanted to study computer science at Stanford and Harvard. So these are two of the most competitive computer science programs in the world. So a student would have to demonstrate a high level of ability in computer science. Now, Aryan, when he came to us, had a very strong profile in debate. He didn't have as many computer science activities, but he was a really good debater. So he was vice captain of the Oman national debate team. Now, when we're working with students, we want to, if they have two interests like this, we want to encourage them to build a project that brings these two interests together. So he actually coded a civic debate app, which is amazing. He also participated in Lean Gap. He coded an app to help deliver food to food insecure families from restaurants, and that was in India. And then what's really fascinating is that he posted about his organization, his project on the Crimson app, where all Crimson students could see. And he actually found that 2 other Crimson students wanted to launch the same project in their own country. So it's a really nice win-win, because if you're part of the Crimson community, you can participate in other people's projects, and you can make this a leadership project by establishing someone else's project in your country. That makes you like the country lead. And then equally on the other side, he was able to expand his project without so much extra work, because 2 other Crimson students wanted to do that. So he had a very, very, very amazing extracurricular profile, whilst also having strong academics, and was accepted to both Stanford and Harvard, as well as a number of other universities. There's a little error there. Second case study is a student called Lena. So Lena was working with a strategist, Tehreem, who went to Georgetown and then got a master in Columbia, and then actually was employed by NYU Abu Dhabi. And she had an extracurricular mentor who had also gone to NYU Abu Dhabi and had experience building his own companies and social organizations. His students have been admitted to, many, many universities. She was an IB student. She had a predicted grade of 43 and also perfect SAT score, but she also had some American curriculum courses. So that's why she has a GPA there. So if you're thinking of taking APs, this is for you. You can provide both. So she did her extracurricular profile is totally different. Aryan's was very technical, very much about computer science. Lena's is a little bit more socially oriented. So she was interested in economics. She took part of a Harvard program. She also created her own organization speaking about politics, women's rights, education, and economics in Saudi. Now, this is really interesting because you can imagine for an admissions officer in the United States, this is not stuff that they get to see very often because they're not so close with Saudi Arabia on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, she had great essays as well, and she ended up being accepted to UPenn, which is an Ivy League university, as well as Duke, Boston University, George Washington, UCI, that's the University of Illinois, and UCSD. So that is another really great case study. But with CGA and Crimson Core, we've had students accepted to Stanford, we've had them accepted to LSE, we've had them accepted to Columbia. I have one of my students in the UAE who is at Columbia University right now, and she had done APs with us. She was at a very, very, very good British school. But on top of that, she wanted to do, she was very interested in psychology, and her school didn't offer psychology. So she took those courses with Crimson Global Academy and is now studying in a psychology program at an Ivy League university. So there's a lot of different options for you. And I have another student who actually was in the UAE, and he was in a British school here, but it wasn't a super high ranking school. And so he decided to join CGA. And I've heard from his parent that in the beginning he felt really shy and he wasn't a very confident student. He entered the online school, and because in an online school, everyone is sort of equal distant from the center, you don't have cliques and things like that. He really came into his own and became a really confident student. Now, he had a lot more time in his day because he wasn't commuting to school and the classes were just better. So he was spending much less time studying by himself and getting extra help. And so with that extra time, he actually started his own business, which has now received funding. He ended up taking a gap year before going to university to build out his business. He got funding for it when he was 17. And this is all because he had extra time that he wouldn't have had before. I want to clarify also that the student Lena that you see in front of me, she actually got a scholarship. She was a Benjamin Franklin scholar, which is pretty cool because that's very rare. So you can see all these students have very different profiles, and yet they were all able to achieve amazing results because the name of the game for us is personalization and making sure we're customizing everything to the students' needs and requirements and building you a personalized plan to get you where you need to go.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. You share it with us. So cool cases, and I admire it. You should be proud of your students, I suppose. Yeah, and they have done so much work. To
Totally.
be perfectly honest, yeah, you anticipate all my questions, and that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your answers. It was so informative and valuable. I suppose that both parents and students get many answers and learn about tips for successful admission. And we have a great option that I mentioned before. Viewers can leave their questions in a special box below.
Yeah.
And so let's look and try to answer them. So for now,
Can I get in?
yeah.
Can I get into Oxford? Absolutely. We send more students to Oxford and Cambridge than any other company. We have dedicated Oxford Cambridge admissions teams. So if you are interested in that, definitely contact us and we can get you in for a free consultation with one of our academic advisors. For getting into Oxford, it depends on the program, but we would help with the admissions test, the interview. We even have Oxford former admissions officers who can review applications. You can even work with them. We have fantastic Oxbridge support. Anastasia, how should they get in touch?
Yeah, 1 minute, please. Yeah, unfortunately, the stream system doesn't immediately allow us to see all messages. So the audience, do not worry. We will definitely look at your questions after the live stream and give your answers to all questions. And yeah, here you can see our details. So we will be happy to answer all your questions via mail as well. Yeah, and I suppose, Soraya, it was a great meeting you and discussing your insights about the admission to the best universities in the world. Thank you very much for joining us today and sharing such valuable information. I believe it will help many students achieve their educational goals and help to be enrolled at the dream university.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you are interested in any of the things we just spoken about, maybe just specify whether it's Crimson Global Academy that you're looking at or Crimson Education University Admission Services. And the Educate Online team will then make sure to direct you to the right people. So they would be different teams. We have admissions officer for our school and then academic advisor for the University Admission Service. If you're interested in both, I mean, mention that as well, and it'll get back to us.
Yeah, you simply can send your email and we will help you with clarifying this information and we will try to help you to find the best option for your student. Yeah, so dear viewers, thank you all for listening us today and it was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hope you
And
guys enjoyed.
I hope to see you soon. So thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye.